I woke up on a strange island, and a feline female marked me as her mate. His head throbbed, and the last thing he remembered was the bright flash in his spaceship before everything went black. Now he was lying on soft sand, the warmth of the sun on his face, the scent of salt in the air. He sat up and looked around. The place was unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering trees with leaves that shimmered in shades of green and gold surrounded him. Strange flowers glowed softly, casting colors across the sand. Tiny bird-like creatures with translucent wings zipped past, making delicate chimes as they moved. It was beautiful, but also strange, almost unreal. John tried to stand, his legs weak and unsteady. He examined himself. His suit was torn, scratches running along his arms. His communicator was smashed, useless. His ship, where was it? He turned toward the shoreline. Pieces of metal glimmered in the sunlight. The spaceship lay broken, half buried in the sand, smoke rising from its torn hull. Panic rose in his chest. He had survived the crash, but he was alone on an unknown island in a galaxy far from home. His first instinct was fear, but deep down, something in him whispered, "You can survive this." He had to. Humans survived worse. As he limped along the beach, he noticed tracks in the sand. They weren't human. Small, clawed footprints, delicate but precise, leading into the dense forest. John's curiosity outweighed his fear. He followed them, stepping carefully, keeping an eye out for predators. The forest opened to a clearing. There, drinking from a small, sparkling stream, was a creature unlike anything John had ever seen. At first, he thought it was a human in a costume. Then he realized it was. The creature had the body of a humanoid but the features of a feline. Soft fur covered her arms and legs. A long tail swayed behind her and ears twitched at the slightest sound. Her eyes were a brilliant amber, watching him carefully, unafraid but alert. John froze. The feline female tilted her head, studying him. Then slowly she approached, moving with grace that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. Her gaze locked on his, and a strange sense of calm washed over him. She stopped just a few feet away. John swallowed hard. Hello." His voice sounded strange in the quiet forest. She didn't answer. Instead, she circled him slowly, sniffing the air, watching him carefully. Then she raised her hand, or what could be called a hand, and touched his chest lightly. A strange warmth spread from the point of contact, and John felt dizzy for a moment. What are you doing?" he asked, stepping back instinctively. The feline female didn't respond with words. Instead, she leaned closer, brushing his shoulder with her head, almost like a cat would. Then she turned and ran a short distance, stopping to look back at him as if inviting him to follow. John hesitated. His instincts screamed to run, to hide, but something inside told him to trust her. Slowly, he followed. The forest grew denser, the sunlight dimming as the trees rose higher. Strange sounds echoed around him, chirps, growls, and whispers he couldn't identify. The feline female moved with confidence, leaping over roots and rocks with ease. John stumbled more than once, but he kept moving, driven by curiosity and survival. After some time, they reached a small clearing with a pool of clear, blue water. The feline female sat by the edge, watching him carefully. Then she did something unexpected. She pressed her hand to the ground, closed her eyes, and emitted a soft, vibrating sound. John didn't understand, but he felt it in his chest, a deep resonance that made his heartbeat slow. Then, without warning, she touched him again. This time he felt a mark, like a warm, sticky sensation, almost like paint but alive. It spread across his shoulder and chest, and he instinctively knew it was important. "Wait, what is this?" John asked, panic rising again. The feline female tilted her head. Her eyes seemed to say, "It's nothing bad, you're safe." She brushed her tail against him, and a strange calm settled over him. Despite himself, John felt different, connected. He sat by the water, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Who was she? What was this place? And why did she mark him like that? He looked at her, and for the first time he saw curiosity in her eyes, not just caution. It was as if she expected something from him. But what? Hours passed. John tried to explore the area, searching for food and shelter. The island seemed abundant, fruits with bright colors, water that sparkled in the sun, and small creatures he could catch. But danger was everywhere. Strange, shadowy figures moved in the forest, and he often felt eyes on him. The feline female stayed close, watching, occasionally nudging him towards safety or away from danger. He began to understand her gestures, the tilt of her head, the flick of her tail, the hum she made. They didn't speak the same language, but somehow they communicated. As night fell, the forest transformed. Glowing plants lit the area in soft blues and purples. Strange sounds echoed, some melodic, some harsh. John realized the island wasn't just strange, it was alive, almost aware of him. The feline female led him to a sheltered area under a large tree. She gestured for him to rest, curling her tail around him. Hesitant but exhausted, John lay down. His mind raced with questions, but he felt safe, for the first time since the crash. As he drifted to sleep, he thought about the mark she had given him. What did it mean? Was it a warning, a claim, or something deeper? He didn't know, but somehow he felt it was important, more important than anything else on the island. In his dreams, he saw the feline female again, not as a predator but as a guide. Her amber eyes glowed, and she seemed to say something without words. "You belong here. Trust me." John woke at dawn to the sound of birds, or creatures that sounded like birds but had strange, melodic calls. The feline female was gone, but a trail of paw-like prints led deeper into the forest. He knew he had to follow. Whatever this island was, whatever she wanted from him, he couldn't ignore it. As he walked, he found evidence of her people, small carvings on trees, ruins of stone structures, and other marks that spoke of intelligence and culture. He realized this island was not just a wilderness, it was home. And now, in some strange way, he was marked as part of it. Hours turned into a day as he navigated through the forest. Each step was a lesson. Some plants were safe, some were deadly, some creatures were dangerous, others could be helpful. He began to adapt, relying on both his human skills and the guidance of the feline female. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in oranges and purples, he found her waiting at a cliff overlooking the ocean. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her posture, her eyes told him everything. The island was vast, full of mysteries and dangerous, but together they could survive. John sat beside her, looking out at the endless waves. He felt a strange connection, a bond he didn't fully understand. He didn't know what the mark meant yet or why she chose him. But one thing was certain, his life had changed forever. On this strange island in a galaxy far from home, survival was only the beginning. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that the feline female, this mysterious, intelligent creature, had chosen him not just as a companion but for something far greater. The island was alive, the night creatures stirred, and John felt the first spark of what it meant to belong somewhere, to be needed, and to be tested. The journey had begun, and there was no turning back. The next morning, John woke to the soft light filtering through the leaves. The air was cooler now, and the island seemed quieter, almost watchful. The feline female was already awake, sitting nearby, her amber eyes scanning the surroundings. She flicked her tail, a sign that he should follow her. John rose, careful not to disturb the small pile of fruit she had left. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten properly since the crash, but the fruits were unfamiliar. Some were bright red, some purple, and others glowed faintly in the morning light. Hesitating, he picked one and bit into it. The taste was sweet and juicy, unlike anything on Earth. Encouraged, he ate a few more, feeling his strength slowly return. The feline female watched him closely, occasionally touching a fruit and nodding. It was clear she was teaching him which foods were safe. John realized that on this island, Survival depended on learning quickly. Trusting instincts alone wouldn't be enough. She motioned with her hands and tail, leading him toward a shallow stream nearby. Water flowed clear and cold over smooth stones. John knelt and drank, feeling refreshed. The feline female licked her paw and touched the water before drinking, as if showing him the proper way. "Okay," John muttered. "I think I'm getting it." She tilted her head and gave a soft hum, a sound of approval. John smiled, feeling a small sense of achievement. The island wasn't just dangerous, it was alive, full of rules and lessons, and she was his teacher. As they moved deeper into the forest, John noticed more signs of intelligence. Small piles of stones arranged in patterns, paths cleared through thick vegetation, and trees carved with symbols. The feline female stopped at each, pointing with her tail or paw, allowing John to observe. He began to understand that her people had lived here for generations, shaping the island to suit their needs without harming it. Hours passed, and John's muscles ached from climbing over roots and wading through streams. Yet every step taught him something. He learned which plants could heal minor cuts, which vines could be used for rope, and which leaves repelled insects. The feline female demonstrated hunting techniques as well, teaching him to move silently, listen carefully, and strike with precision. During a short break, they sat on a rock overlooking the forest floor. John picked up a small creature, a bright green lizard-like animal, and held it carefully. The feline female leaned close, sniffed the lizard, and gave a soft chirp. Then she showed him how to release it gently, letting it go unharmed. You don't just kill for food?" John asked, amazed. The feline female shook her head and touched his chest gently, as if to say, "Balance." John understood that survival here wasn't just about brute strength, it was about respect, observation, and intelligence. By midday, the forest became darker and the air warmer. Strange calls echoed from above, and John noticed shadows moving among the treetops. The feline female's ears twitched constantly, and she crouched low, her tail stiff. John followed her lead, moving carefully. Suddenly, a creature burst from the bushes ahead, a large predator sleek with black scales and glowing eyes. It growled low and menacing and lunged toward them. John froze, fear gripping him. The feline female leapt forward, hissing loudly, and batted at the predator with claws she could retract like a cat's. John reacted instinctively. He grabbed a sturdy branch and swung it at the predator, hitting it on the side. The creature yelped and backed off, but it wasn't gone. It circled them, eyes glinting in the dappled sunlight. "Stay close," the feline female whispered, though it was more a mental command than spoken words. She moved swiftly, leading John in a zigzag through the trees. The predator followed, but the feline female's agility and sharp senses kept them ahead. After several tense minutes, they reached a narrow cliff ledge overlooking a river below. The feline female crouched and leapt gracefully to a lower branch. John followed, stumbling but landing safely. The predator didn't pursue further and eventually disappeared into the forest. John exhaled, his heart racing. I think I get it now," he said, his voice shaky. "You survive by being smart, by thinking." The feline female purred softly, brushing her tail against his arm. John realized that the mark she had given him somehow connected them, not just physically, but mentally. He could sense her moods, intentions, and warnings without words. That night they made camp near a large, hollow tree. The feline female showed him how to use leaves and vines to build a shelter, keeping him off the cold ground. She even taught him how to light a small fire using stones and friction, a skill he had never mastered on Earth. As the fire flickered, John reflected on his progress. In just one day, he had learned more about survival than he had ever imagined. But more importantly, he had begun to understand the culture of this feline species. They were intelligent, respectful, and connected to their environment in ways humans had forgotten. The feline female curled next to him, her fur warm against his arm. John realized that her marking wasn't just a claim, it was a bond. In her world, trust and loyalty were more important than dominance. He felt honored, even if it was confusing. Sleep came slowly, and John's dreams were filled with strange visions, glowing forests, creatures with multiple limbs, and the constant presence of the feline female guiding him. When he awoke, the forest seemed even more alive, as if it had been watching him all along. Over the next few days, John continued to learn. He discovered how to fish in the streams, set traps for small game, and identify plants that could be used for medicine. Each lesson was reinforced by the feline female, who observed him constantly, correcting mistakes and encouraging successes. But the island wasn't without danger. One afternoon, John stumbled upon a hidden area filled with large, carnivorous plants. Their tendrils moved slowly but deliberately, and he realized that one wrong step could mean death. The feline female arrived just in time, swiping at the tendrils and pulling him back. "Thanks," John said, panting. I almost didn't see them." She purred and nudged him forward, showing him a safer path. John realized that on this island, awareness and quick thinking were as important as strength. Humans had adapted to challenges for millennia, and now, away from technology and comfort, his ingenuity was being tested. In the evenings, they explored the ruins scattered across the forest, stone structures covered in vines, symbols carved into the walls, and ancient tools left behind. John studied them carefully, noting patterns and functions. He realized that these feline people had a rich history, far older than any human colony he had heard of. Through these discoveries, John began to see a bigger picture. The island wasn't just a place to survive, it was a living culture, a society with rules, knowledge, and traditions. The feline female, S marking connected him to this society, making him part of something larger. Yet, not everything was peaceful. One evening, distant howls echoed through the forest. John tensed, knowing that other creatures, or even other feline clans, might be approaching. The feline female's ears twitched constantly, and her tail lashed back and forth. She led him to a hidden cave, deep in the forest, and signaled him to stay quiet. Shadows moved outside, and John could feel the tension in the air. He realized that the island was alive not just with beauty, but with danger, politics, and survival challenges. That night, as he lay in the cave, John thought about the future. He had survived the first days, learned the basics of food, water, and shelter, and begun to understand his strange companion. But he knew this was only the beginning. The island held secrets, challenges, and perhaps even enemies that he could not yet see. And yet, despite fear and uncertainty, he felt a strange sense of belonging. The feline female had marked him for a reason. Whether he fully understood it or not, he was now part of her world, and together they would face whatever the island had in store. As he drifted to sleep, John's mind raced with questions. What other dangers lurked in the forest? Were there more intelligent creatures like her? And most importantly, what did the mark truly mean? One thing was certain: survival was no longer just about staying alive. It was about learning, adapting, and becoming part of something greater than himself. The island waited, alive and watchful, and John was ready to face it. One lesson at a time. Days passed on the island, and John had become more confident. He moved with the feline female, learning the forest's secrets, avoiding predators, and even helping gather food. He no longer felt like an outsider. The mark she had left on him had become part of who he was. He could feel her presence, guiding him in subtle ways, warning him of danger, leading him to food, or nudging him to safer paths. But peace was fragile. One afternoon, the sky darkened suddenly. Thick clouds rolled in, and the wind howled through the trees. John knew a storm was coming, but it was more than that. He sensed tension in the air, something primal. The feline female's ears twitched constantly, her tail lashing back and forth. "Something's wrong," John whispered. She didn't answer. Instead, she led him deeper into the forest, moving faster than usual. The branches whipped at his face and rain began to fall, cold and heavy. The forest floor became slippery and John struggled to keep up. Suddenly, they came to a clearing. Shadows moved among the trees, other feline creatures but different. They were larger with darker fur, and their eyes glowed with suspicion. They hissed and bared their teeth. John realized this was more than a storm, it was a confrontation. The feline female stepped protectively in front of him, her body low, tail flicking, ears flat. She hissed loudly, a warning. One of the darker felines stepped forward, growling. John could feel their challenge. "You are not welcome here." The feline female bristled but didn't retreat. Instead, she made a low, vibrating hum. Something John had learned meant both defiance and communication. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the intention. They wanted him gone or worse. John's heart raced. He was human, less strong, less agile, but he had learned to survive, to think, to adapt. He couldn't just run. "Stay behind me," he whispered to the feline female. The leader of the dark felines lunged. The battle was swift and intense. The feline female dodged with lightning speed, striking with claws and teeth, but the human instinct in John kicked in. He picked up a sturdy branch, using it to block attacks and create distance. He realized something important. Survival didn't mean brute force alone. It meant thinking, observing, and using the environment to his advantage. He kicked loose stones toward the attackers, used low branches to trip them, and led them into muddy patches where their footing was poor. The feline female watched him, eyes wide with surprise and admiration. For the first time, John felt they were partners in a fight, not just teacher and student. After what felt like hours but was only minutes, the dark felines retreated, hissing and growling. John and the feline female were alone in the clearing, soaked and exhausted, but alive. You did well," John panted. The feline female brushed against him, a gesture of approval. He realized the mark she had given him wasn't just a bond, it was a sign of trust. He had earned her respect and perhaps the respect of her people. That night they made camp near a small cave. John tended to minor scratches and bites while she kept watch. The storm raged outside, but inside the cave they were safe. He realized that despite the danger, he had grown stronger, more aware, more capable. The next morning, the forest was quiet. The aftermath of the storm left debris scattered across the ground. John and the feline female began exploring again, but he noticed something unusual: tracks, not made by the dark felines, but by something larger, heavier, and more dangerous. As they followed the tracks, John realized they led to the ruins he had seen days earlier. Large stone walls, overgrown with vines, surrounded a clearing. Inside, massive doors lay half buried in the earth, etched with symbols. John felt a strange pull, a mixture of fear and curiosity. The feline female approached the doors cautiously, sniffing and pressing her hands against the symbols. John watched, sensing her caution. These ruins were ancient, and whatever lay inside could change everything they knew about the island. Suddenly, the ground shook. A low rumble echoed through the clearing. From the shadows, a massive creature emerged, a predator unlike any John had seen. Its body was thick and armored with sharp claws and eyes that glowed red. It roared, a sound that shook the leaves and sent birds scattering. John froze. The feline female crouched, tail stiff, ears flat. She hissed at him, warning him to stay back. But John knew that hiding would do no good. He scanned the area, looking for anything that could help. He noticed the fallen stones around the ruins and the vines hanging from the walls. Using his knowledge of physics and balance, he quickly set a trap: loosely tied vines and heavy stones positioned to fall on the creature if it lunged. The feline female watched, her eyes wide, as John worked with precision, relying on human ingenuity rather than brute strength. The creature lunged. John pulled a vine, sending a stone crashing down on its back. The beast roared in pain, shaking the ground, but it was slowed. The feline female leapt in, attacking its legs, distracting it long enough for John to adjust another trap. Together, human and feline, they worked as a team. Each action was calculated, precise. John realized that this island, with all its danger, had taught him something profound. Humans were adaptable, creative, and capable of surviving through intelligence, not just strength. After a tense struggle, the predator finally retreated, wounded but alive. John and the feline female stood side by side, panting and covered in mud and scratches. But they had survived. And more importantly, they had survived together. The ruins seemed to calm after the creature left. John examined the massive doors and carvings more closely. Symbols glowed faintly in the dim light, as if responding to the presence of the feline female and the mark she had given him. He touched one, and a soft vibration ran through his hand, resonating with the mark on his chest. He realized that the marking wasn't just a social bond. It might be a key, a signal, or a connection to the island itself. The feline female brushed against him, her eyes shining with a mixture of pride and curiosity. John felt a deep sense of purpose. He wasn't just surviving. He was becoming part of this world, unlocking its secrets, and proving that humans could adapt and thrive even in alien environments. As night fell, John and the feline female camped near the ruins. The forest was alive with strange sounds, but for the first time, John felt more confident than afraid. He had learned to think, to adapt, to survive, and in doing so, he had grown stronger, smarter, and more capable. He watched the feline female, her eyes glowing softly in the moonlight, and realized that their bond had deepened. She trusted him, relied on him, and perhaps even saw him as an equal. The mark she had given him was no longer just a symbol. It was a connection, a partnership forged through survival, courage, and intelligence. John knew that the island still held many secrets, many dangers, and many challenges. But he also knew something else. Humans had a unique strength, a combination of creativity, adaptability, and determination that could overcome almost any obstacle. And as he drifted to sleep that night, with the feline female curled beside him, he felt ready. Ready for whatever the island would throw at him next. Ready to face dangers, unlock secrets, and prove that humans, though fragile in body, were formidable in mind, spirit, and courage. The island was alive, mysterious, and dangerous. But John, marked and bonded with the feline female, was no longer just a survivor. He was a participant, a learner, and a protector. And together they would face the challenges ahead, stronger than either could be alone. The next morning the sun rose over the island, casting long shadows across the ruins. John woke to the soft glow of dawn, the feline female already standing beside him, alert and poised. Her amber eyes scanned the forest, ears twitching. Something felt different. The air was heavy with anticipation, as if the island itself was aware of what was to come. John rose, stretching his aching muscles. The events of the past days had changed him. He was no longer just a stranded human. He had learned, adapted, and survived. He had grown stronger in mind and spirit. The mark on his chest seemed to pulse gently, almost alive, reminding him of the bond he shared with the feline female. They moved toward the center of the ruins, where the massive doors still stood, etched with glowing symbols. John felt a strange energy emanating from them, as if the island itself was calling. The feline female crouched in front of him, tail flicking in caution. She hissed softly, warning him to be careful. John nodded. He had learned to respect this world, to observe before acting. He placed his hand on the door, feeling the vibrations run through him. The symbols on the stone responded, glowing brighter, and the door slowly began to shift, revealing a hidden chamber inside. Inside, the air was cool and filled with an unfamiliar hum. Ancient machinery lined the walls, long dormant but clearly functional. Crystals embedded in the floor pulsed with light, illuminating the room. John's eyes widened. This was no ordinary ruin. It was a technological marvel, evidence of a civilization far older and more advanced than the feline species themselves. The feline female stepped forward, her eyes fixed on a central pedestal. On it lay a small, glowing orb. She sniffed it, then looked back at John, signaling him to approach. The orb seemed to react to his presence, brightening with each step he took. John hesitated, then touched the orb. Immediately, images and sounds flooded his mind, visions of the island's history, the rise of the feline species, and the ancient guardians who had once protected this land. He saw battles, natural disasters, and the wisdom passed down through generations. And then a clear message. The mark chooses one who is capable, wise, and brave. Together, you can protect the island and its people. The feline female purred softly, brushing against his arm. John realized the truth. The marking had chosen him not just as a companion, but as a protector, a bridge between human ingenuity and feline tradition. His presence here was not an accident. It was a purpose. Before he could absorb the revelations, a rumble shook the chamber. Outside, the ground trembled and distant roars echoed through the forest. The predator from before, or something far greater, was approaching. John's heart raced, but he no longer felt fear. He had learned to think, to plan, to act. He turned to the feline female. "We can do this." Together, her eyes met his, full of trust and determination. She hissed once, then crouched low, signaling him to follow. They emerged from the ruins, moving quickly toward a vantage point overlooking the forest. From there, John could see the massive predator approaching, a creature larger and more terrifying than before, accompanied by several smaller predators. John's mind raced. Using everything he had learned, he began to set traps and plan their attack. He instructed the feline female to lure the smaller predators into narrow paths where they could be trapped. Then, using vines, stones, and the terrain, he prepared a mechanism to slow the massive predator. The battle began. The feline female darted forward, agile and swift, drawing the smaller predators into John's traps. Stones tumbled, vines snapped tight, and one by one, the smaller creatures were immobilized. The massive predator roared, furious and relentless, its glowing eyes fixed on John and the feline female. John waited, analyzing its movements. He saw an opening, a weak spot in the creature's armored flank. With a deep breath, he pulled a vine attached to a heavy stone, swinging it precisely at the target. The stone struck, and the predator staggered, giving the feline female the chance to leap and strike with claws and teeth. Together, human and feline, they fought with coordination, intelligence, and courage. The predator lunged, but John was ready. Using a combination of traps and quick thinking, he guided it into a pit covered with foliage. It roared in frustration, then collapsed, exhausted and defeated. Silence fell over the forest. John and the feline female stood side by side, breathing heavily, covered in mud and scratches. But they had won. The island was safe for now. The feline female purred, brushing against John, and he smiled. For the first time, he felt fully accepted, not just by her but by the island itself. The mark on his chest pulsed gently, a symbol of trust, bond, and purpose. Over the next days, John explored more of the ruins. He discovered chambers filled with knowledge, devices that could manipulate the environment, and artifacts that told the story of an ancient civilization that had once thrived on this island. With the feline female's guidance, he learned to understand and use some of the simpler technologies, blending human creativity with the wisdom of her species. The feline clans began to approach cautiously. The dark felines from before observed him with suspicion, but the feline female stood proudly by his side. She hissed softly, signaling her dominance and acceptance of John. Slowly, the other clans began to understand that he was not a threat, but an ally, a bridge between human ingenuity and feline tradition. John realized the truth of the HFY principle he had come to live. Humans might be fragile physically, but their creativity, adaptability, and courage allowed them to survive and thrive even in alien worlds. The feline species respected this, even if they didn't fully understand it. One evening, standing on a cliff overlooking the ocean, John and the feline female watched the sun set. The waves glimmered like liquid gold, and the forest below pulsed with life. He felt a sense of accomplishment but also anticipation. The island held many more secrets, and the bond between human and feline was just the beginning of something greater. "We did it," John whispered. The feline female purred in response, brushing her tail against his arm. He knew they would face more challenges, more predators, and more mysteries, but now he was ready. He had learned to survive, to adapt, and to trust in both his human instincts and the guidance of his feline companion. The mark on his chest was no longer just a symbol. It was a promise, a bond, and a responsibility. In the following weeks, John helped the feline species improve their defenses, using simple tools and traps combined with their natural agility. Together, they created safe paths through the forest, warned of predators, and began uncovering the deeper mysteries of the island. John discovered ancient devices that could amplify communication between clans, manipulate water flow, and even light up large areas of the forest. The feline female guided him in understanding the symbols and rituals, and slowly they formed a partnership that was respected by all. The island, once wild and unpredictable, began to feel like home. John understood that his journey had not been about escaping danger, but about becoming part of something larger. He was no longer just a human lost in an alien world. He was a protector, a learner, and a bridge between two intelligent species. One evening, as the stars appeared in the sky, the feline female curled next to him. Her eyes glowed softly, reflecting the constellations above. John placed a hand on her head, feeling the warmth and trust between them. He knew that whatever the future held, he would face it with courage, intelligence, and determination. The island was alive, full of mysteries and dangers, but also full of life, knowledge, and friendship. Humans had come far, adapting and thriving against impossible odds. And here on this strange island, John realized something profound. Humanity's true strength was not just in technology or weapons, but in heart, mind, and spirit. The mark on his chest pulsed one last time that night, a reminder that he was chosen, connected, and capable. And with the feline female by his side, he knew that together they could face anything. The island stretched before them, endless and mysterious. The sun would rise again, predators would return, and secrets would continue to unfold. But John was ready. He had survived, adapted, and grown. And for the first time in his life, he felt truly at home.